My name is Sami Murphy, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Living Signals. And we're really excited to show you a bit about what we've been working on.
I'm John Church, CTO.
Okay.
So, like it says up here, Living Signals is a peace and security intelligence platform designed with and for actors at the humanitarian development peace nexus. So what does that actually mean? Basically, what we're doing is we have a data pipeline that goes out, searches for both international and local sources in an area of interest. We index all of those, and then we can regularly pull information from those news sources, pull out claims, mark the claims according to a rubric, and what we end up with is a massive data set that we think of as a qualitative data set of tagged information happening in that area. So stepping back a little bit, most data sets that we use right now, I think you can kind of think of as quantitative in nature. The end goal is to take a lot of this messy, semantic human stuff and turn it into numbers that we can use and compare. That's not to say that all is. Like it's already been mentioned, the notes field in ACLA data, very useful. But we think that there's a need for a fundamentally qualitative data set to look at conflict and peace data. And why we think that, for a few reasons. Obviously, where we are right now with AI enables this type of data set to be collected at a massive scale. We think, for some things, AI, it's still not quite good at very strict grading, but for things like extracting claims and marking claims into categories, for grouping claims, it's very good and can be done cost-effectively at scale. And then more importantly, AI, as has already been discussed, is very good at looking at massive amounts of qualitative data and drawing conclusions. I actually just read a stat this morning. If the benchmarks continue going in the same direction, AI is going to beat super forecasters by the end of 2026 in at least short-term forecasting. And then, of course, there are the ongoing problems of figuring out how can we use data to look at fundamentally qualitative problems, like certain problems in women, peace, and security, for example, and how do we get accurate data quickly and up to date. So our pipeline feeds into a data layer that we then serve in a custom dashboard for humans to use, and then into what we're calling the analytical engine, basically the MCP connection to tools like Claude and ChatGPT. Moving forward, we're going to be using these tools more and more and more, Claude and ChatGPT. And we think that there needs to be a better source of information for those tools than just searching the web or than using quantitative data, which, like we've discussed, there's a lot of opportunity in feeding in pre-indexed, pre-computated qualitative data.
So this isn't just a technical innovation, but a political one, because we are expanding our search criteria beyond violent conflict events to address wider forms of security systematically, allowing us to better understand things like structural violences and slow emergencies or gendered insecurities, et cetera. We also systematically capture indicators of positive peace because we believe it's equally as important to know where social capital lies, where mediation processes are underway, and where peace is taking root as where violence is erupting. So we do this through an approach we call signals intelligence, which is where we extract signals, which are discrete human development peace relevant pieces of information and claims that reflect ground conditions and are tagged with locational, quantitative, and qualitative attributes and are source attributed as well across hundreds of global news sources with an emphasis on local news reporting. So this allows us to monitor wider risks before tipping points of conflict, as well as begin to look at opportunities. This lets us monitor forms of violence that are lower intensity or don't need to reach certain casualty thresholds. And we also don't start with discrete definitions of what we think constitutes a specific security typology, but rather through our kind of tagging and semantic approach, we enable users across a range of research interests and that are looking to use this data for various use cases to query for different data that they're specifically looking for. So this stands alone as a unique kind of early action data set that tells us signals that don't always make it to the major media or conflict data sets, but it also can be used as kind of a centralized repository of signals across different sources for that triangulation or cross-validation contextualization layer that was mentioned briefly earlier. So, okay, perfect, it started playing. So this is a demo of our beta version that we're currently in beta testing. So you can see there are a variety of different indicators that you can query and filter for, including the conventional ones, as well as things like peace and women's security, environmental indicators, et cetera. And once you select whatever suits your research interests, it will visualize signals that correspond, and you can click through them to see the signals in greater detail, as well as their claims, and trace them back to the exact source. You can also look at their recency and then add these straight to an organized folder where you can start to collect different signals to cross-validate later or use in dossiers. We also recommend using our MCP connector, which is basically a link between our data sets and AI agents, like Claude, as you can see, where you can start to prompt in natural, simple language and ask questions of greater complexity, like what are the interlinkages between women's security and climate security, or what are the latest trends in Central Africa, for example. And it will generate polished reports, analytical products based on your guiding, and the quality of the data visualizations and reports that we're already seeing are really strong because it is pulling on our vast repository of data. So these are all very customizable and configurable, basically allowing providing an operational support tool for saving people time for data collection and analysis to free up human hours for the work that matters, like building connections and innovation, et cetera. So what's next? We're working towards improving our data quality and building a data verification layer, integrating geospatial data in collaboration with a technical partner, NASA Lifelines. We're really excited about that. We also invite you all to join our community of practice and to stay in our orbit for our official launch, or even one-to-one methodological discussions, or even demos with your team to see how we might be able to apply and enhance our data.
Yeah. And I just mentioned a note on why we think this is going to be increasingly important in the coming years. Like some speakers have already mentioned, it's very useful to have this type of data to accompany existing models, to add context. But that stat that I mentioned earlier about language models being used for forecasting, they only perform well with a manifold of qualitative data around them. And so if we want to prepare for language models achieving capabilities that can actually be used in prediction, forecasting in the peace and security area, we need to prepare the qualitative data to accurately provide the language models a picture of what's going on in some of these areas that are underreported in Western news sources and underrepresented in the data that we already have.